Welcome to JSA TV, where we're covering the latest news, stories, trends, and innovations from thought leaders from within the digital infrastructure industry. And we are coming at you live. That's right, Caitlyn. We are live in beautiful downtown Austin, Texas, home of the Longhorns, keeping it weird on JSA TV at DataCloud USA, co-located with Metro Connect. And this thought leader to my right is Caitlyn Glenn. Caitlyn is the Director of Site Selection and Business Incentives at K.E. Andrews. Caitlyn, welcome to JSA TV.
Thank you, Dean. I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy that you are here, Caitlyn. So a couple of things in your title that already made me think, let's ask about these things. Why don't you, for context, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about what you mean by credits and incentives for businesses? What does that mean?
Yeah, so almost every state in the United States offers some sort of business incentive that's there to entice you to develop or grow within their jurisdictions. So those could mean sales tax rebates, exemptions, they could be property tax abatements, they could be income tax credits. They could also range and be outright cash grants or infrastructure upgrades.
Which is what we're going to talk about, is that infrastructure, right? So tell me how do business incentives, what role do business incentives play in site selection for that infrastructure?
Business incentives are a part of the puzzle, the overall puzzle.
It is
selection.
A bit puzzling to me, so I'm glad that we're having this conversation.
Glad I used that word today.
Yeah, perfect.
So it's part of the overall impact of the project development. So when you're doing your financial pro formas to make sure that the project is viable, taxes play a pretty critical role in that.
Yeah.
And so what I like to do is have companies project out their tax liability for each of those sites and then layer on the incentives. And incentives in some states are pretty obvious, right? They're specific to data centers. So Texas, where we are, has a sales tax exemption for data centers. But if you look a little deeper and maybe benchmark against similar projects, you could find some other incentives that aren't specific to data centers, but data centers would qualify for. So in Texas, that would be a property tax abatement that should not be missed. But while the state sales tax exemptions at the state level, you have to also negotiate the property tax abatement at the community level. So just knowing the ins and outs of what's out there from a statutory perspective is important so that you don't miss any great value.
You know what I love most about this conversation right now is a conversation I just had. We were talking about kind of all the ancillary players that kind of come together that ultimately make things work. This is the first time I've ever spoken to anybody who actually is focused on this very, very specific thing that, now that I know a bit more about it, is absolutely critical. And you mentioned the community component right at that last moment, which is what I'm glad I got this next question, is like, what is the best time to engage a community or state about business incentives?
There's different philosophies on timing and disclosure around development in any industry, not just data centers. My perspective is you don't always have to disclose the company name, but engaging with the community as soon as possible is really important. And then just knowing that you're going to be a community partner. When you come up and are requesting incentives, it's good to approach the community as a stakeholder within their broader plan. So don't just come with your hands open asking for a payout.
Yeah.
Come prepared, right? So bring an economic impact report with you. Show your financial impact that you're going to have on that community. And then find out what's really important to them. So if that community is struggling with their schools, which is really important, if that community is struggling to get a sports center up and running, know that about that community. Yeah. Come prepared with the financial impact that your project could have to help them achieve that. And I'm not saying that it's tax dollars directly from your project. This could be indirect revenue based on ancillary spend within the community because of the development. And then once they see the value that you're bringing to them, both financially and as a community partner, they're going to be a lot more open with approving incentives for your project.
You know, now that we've gotten into this is actually a subject that is pretty near and dear to my heart, honestly, because a lot of the folks that are walking around in this room right now have struggled mightily to help to embolden themselves into these communities because for lack of a better word, less of you. They need more people like you to help them understand what's happening in that community. What are the things that are going to be those hot button issues within that community so that they can make that an easier entry, and actually show them some of the benefits. This is pretty big stuff, especially now as those data centers are encroaching more on the kind of that residential edge. When you have the residential
Yes.
communities that are
Yes.
saying, "Hell no, not in my backyard," kind of thing. So, is that something that you're seeing a lot of?
Yeah, I mean, you need to do your due diligence,
Yeah.
right? So, what are you walking into? What is that community struggling with? What are they pushing back on? Is it a water resource they're nervous about? Is it a power resource? Do they not want you near
Yeah.
their kids and their schools? Well, show what benefits you could bring. Whether these are good paying jobs for their community, whether this is tax revenue that they can then put into that neighborhood, whether they
Schools, hospitals, all.
yes,
Yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah.
yeah. So just be that partner with them, but it's always good to be prepared for that intro conversation and
Yeah.
be prepared as a contributor, not as asking for it. It makes a really big difference because people have long memories.
Yeah, and Caitlin, I feel like I can introduce you probably to a dozen people I've seen walk through here already who might be struggling with doing just that. So, Caitlin, let's do this again sometime, okay? Maybe same time next year. I would love to hear how things kind of evolved on your side of the ball.
Yeah,
Is that cool?
I would love that. Thank you, Dean.
Awesome, Caitlin. Thank you very much, and thank you, viewers, for watching JSA TV. We'll see you very soon.